This is CBC Nova Scotia News.
Missing money. Some fans who put down $50 to secure a ticket for a Halifax CFL franchise say they never got their deposits back.
Unethical or inevitable? Drawing the line on art in the age of artificial intelligence.
And making a splash. We visit a Hants County pool that's just for dogs.
Scattered showers, downpours, and thunderstorms. That's the name of the game overnight and into Tuesday. Your full weather forecast is coming up.
Good evening. At least 6,000 people paid deposits for season tickets for a Halifax CFL franchise when hopes of a team in Halifax were alive. But
the Atlantic Schooners never came to life, and some people say they never got their deposits back. So where did the money go? The CBC's Richard Woodbury reports.
When the Atlantic Schooners launched a season ticket drive in 2018, Rob McCormick signed up. A sports fan wanted to support the team. He also liked how they were going to build a stadium. He hoped this would mean more big concerts in the city. McCormick is one of at least 6,000 people who paid $50 a ticket, but he never got his money back.
That seems to be more money than, I guess, when you go a pair at a time, it certainly does add up, and maybe somebody should be accountable to this.
CBC News spoke to 10 people who said they paid the deposit. 8 said they did not receive refunds. Jason Mullis is one of them. He's a diehard CFL fan who lives in Gatineau, Quebec. He planned to get season tickets just to support the league and its dream of a 10th franchise. He says there was chatter online from unhappy fans.
People are upset. I haven't heard nothing. Where's our money? But I don't worry about it. It's just, if you really want it back, you can complain enough. You'll get your money back.
Schooner Sports and Entertainment was the entity behind the venture. It sought municipal and provincial funding to build a 24,000-seat, $110 million stadium in Shannon Park. The space would have been used for community sports and major concerts as well. In late 2019, the Halifax Regional Municipality agreed to give them $20 million if a list of conditions were met. The COVID-19 pandemic killed the project, and Schooner Sports and Entertainment shut down in 2023. To find out where the money for the season ticket deposits went, CBC News contacted former company officials. Anthony LeBlanc agreed to an interview with CBC News, but later sent along a statement. In it, he said they were setting up a portal to honor outstanding refund requests. LeBlanc says details about the portal will be made public shortly. Richard Woodbury, CBC News, Halifax.
An RCMP officer shot and killed a dog that was threatening a pair of canoeists on the Musquodoboit River over the weekend. Police say a man and a woman in a canoe were stalked by 3 vicious dogs near Highway 357 in Elderbank Saturday afternoon. Police say the dogs were trying to board the canoe. An officer arrived at the scene and determined the canoeists were in danger. The officer then shot one of the dogs, killing it. The other 2 dogs ran off following the gunshot. The dead dog did not have a collar or ID.
Irving Shipbuilding has been charged with 5 violations under the Occupational Health and Safety Act in connection with the fatality at the Halifax shipyard last year. 43-year-old Jamie Knight died in February of 2024 after he was struck by a piece of snow removal equipment. An investigator with the Provincial Labour Department laid 5 charges against Irving Shipbuilding last month, and the company was arraigned in Halifax Provincial Court today. Among the charges, the company is accused of failing to create a safe work procedure or plan for snow removal. An Irving spokesperson on Monday called the death of a tragedy and said the company has complied with relevant laws, regulations, and the investigation. Irving Shipbuilding has not entered a plea. The case returns to court in October.
Nova Scotia is trying to revive its offshore petroleum industry. The offshore energy regulator has put out a call for bids on exploration licenses across 13 parcels along the Scotian shelf. Nova Scotia has 3.2 trillion cubic feet of offshore natural gas reserves on the Scotian shelf, which spans 700 kilometers. The Nova Scotia government has made energy development a priority in recent months. Earlier this year, they pitched the Wind West project, which would license offshore wind farms. The province also lifted a moratorium on uranium mining, but last month revealed no companies have come forward with a bid.
Officials with the Nova Scotia government hope 3 new collaborative care clinics in HRM will help eventually take thousands of people off the province's need a family practice registry. The clinic in Beachville is now open and currently has a doctor, nurse practitioner, and family practice nurse for 250 patients. When the clinic is fully staffed, it will have capacity for 8,600 patients. Officials say 5 more doctors have been recruited for the site and should be in place by the end of the year. The 2 other clinics are expected to open in October. A total of 10 doctors have been recruited for the 2 sites. The province says that when all 3 sites are staffed to capacity, they'll be able to serve a total of more than 20,000 patients.
Nova Scotia is reporting its 2nd case of measles this year, this time in Pictou County, and is warning of a possible exposure at the hospital in New Glasgow. Nova Scotia Health says the case is related to travel within Canada to an area with known measles cases. The health authority is also investigating additional contacts who were ill with measles-like symptoms. Health officials believe exposures are limited, but they say anyone who was at Aberdeen Hospital Emergency Department between 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. and St. Martha's Regional Hospital Emergency Department between 10:45 and 4:15 p.m. on July 5th to watch for symptoms.
Well, after a beauty of a day in Halifax, let's check in on your weather forecast.
Yes, it sounds like we're in for some downpours.
Yeah, that's right. Active weather is the name of the game tonight and Tuesday. Tom and Amy, thanks so much. And a special weather statement is in effect for most of mainland Nova Scotia, minus Colchester, Cumberland. And you can see Cape Breton also not included here, but most of the mainland, the risk for these heavy downpours and thunderstorms. Now, it's the remnants of post-tropical Chantal, which is adding the extra kick to this system. And as you can see, pretty quiet this evening. We'll run the risk, a greater risk for these downpours to really ramp up through the overnight and especially Tuesday morning. And this is what we'll see. Breaks where we'll see nothing at all. And then these rounds will come through where it will be coming down. Intense rainfall, that will lead to the potential, at least, of some localized flooding. So keep your eye on the skies for tomorrow. And remember, when the thunder roars, head indoors, turn around, don't drown. If you find a roadway that is covered in water, don't drive through it, turn around. And you can see the greatest rainfall rates will likely be just offshore, but I do think, Tom and Amy, we will get clipped with some of these. So definitely be weather aware for your Tuesday forecast.
Okay,
something to keep an eye out for. Thanks so much, Ryan.
Thank you.
Well, it's no secret that artificial intelligence is changing the way we think. One big subject of debate is whether or not art generated with AI even counts as art. Some Nova Scotia artists call it unethical, while others say it is inevitable. Andrew Sampson reports.
The use of artificial intelligence is stirring up a debate among Nova Scotia artists. Lauren Tamander is an early adapter, using ChatGPT for everything from work to play. She recently used it to make some of her own photos of Halifax into illustrations.
So I was like, I'll just put this through ChatGPT and see what happens. Turned out like a really cool animated kind of vibe that I was going for.
Tamander decided to sell the illustrations online. But when they were reposted on a popular Instagram page, the response was polarizing.
Some people have come onto my own page from Halifax Noise and just saying that I'm stealing people's work. I mean, I don't see it that way because it is my picture that you can see there.
Large language models like those used to build ChatGPT are trained by mining large data sets that include the creative output of artists, often without their consent. That's why some people see what Tamander is doing as theft.
If you flip the situation on the other end and take illustrations that you want to convert into photography, like I can't help but feel that the person on the other end of that equation would feel similar to how illustrators feel in this particular situation.
He's someone who takes pride in doing everything by hand. He draws illustrations on his iPad, but then painstakingly prints the work himself using a homemade tabletop press. Much of this work is for musicians like the Arkells. If they'd used AI to transform a photograph into an illustration, he would have been out of a job.
And I think to replace that with AI and to remove that person from the process is totally unethical.
But others say the tech may open up new possibilities.
I think AI is a tool, and tools are only as good as the people who use them, and they're only as interesting as what's made with them.
How AI will affect art in the future is an open question. Tamander believes that as the technology develops, it will be prudent to get acquainted with how it works. But McCaskill worries about what may happen if we lose sight of what makes art so valuable in the first place. Andrew Sampson, CBC News, Halifax.
A new beer garden on the Bedford Highway in Halifax has reopened after being shut down by the city. The Bedford Beer Garden initially opened in late June, but was forced to close after one weekend for not having enough parking. The owners said they were caught off guard when the city officials told them they were not meeting permit regulations. Co-owner Tony McCool says they've found a temporary solution that's allowed them to get back into business.
The parking situation was the number one sticking point for the city with us. We managed to get around that by shaving off a few hundred square feet of the inside space, which allowed us to have a certain amount of parking spots, which we now have. And so that's how we were able to get the doors finally open. We had to compromise, find that middle ground.
The beer garden reopened on Friday.
A large crowd gathered this past weekend to celebrate being Black and beautiful in downtown Dartmouth. The event was organized by the Black Beauty Culture Association to mark Viola Desmond's birthday and praise her contributions to Black cosmetics. Samantha Dixon-Slaller was with the association, says Black people have a unique relationship to hair and skincare, and Desmond made it more accessible in Nova Scotia.
In most beauty shops, Black beauty shops, people, when they come in, they feel like they're home. And I think a lot of times if you don't feel like you're home, it's hard to have a good sit down and comfortable sit down to get your hair done. I mean, you'll get it done, but it's not like you're not home, so you don't always feel comfortable.
Viola Desmond founded a Black beauty school after starting a successful hair cosmetics business.
Heat warnings mean many of us are trying to find ways to cool down. Lakes, rivers, and swimming pools are popular.
But why should we be the only ones to take the plunge in an outdoor pool? Jane Sponigal visited a new facility for furry friends in St. Croix.
Just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water.
My boy,
it totally is. The only risk here? Someone stealing your toy. This is the Crazy Dog Splash Pad in St. Croix, a 30-foot-long pool just for dogs.
Well, for me, I know I have a dog that loves to swim, and I also am worried about the blue-green algae, so I haven't really swam them a lot in the lakes. So that's why I put this in, so that my dogs could swim and they'd be safe.
The place opened 2 weeks ago, and it's been making a splash. O'Handley says the response has been overwhelming.
Feels good. It feels great because I have a lot of friends that are spreading the word, and even people that I don't know that I've actually made friends with since they've came here, and they're spreading the word, and we're just going to have a lot of fun this summer. That's what I'm looking forward to.
It's fun and good for dogs too.
Swimming is fantastic. For one, it will tire them out, but that's not the first thing. But it's also great for their muscles. It's easier on the joints, especially like this Tide that we see here in the background. She's 9 years old, and I mean, it's great for the older dogs and younger dogs too.
I just love dogs, and I love being a big help.
O'Handley gets some help from her 10-year-old nephew.
I just think they're furry little friends, and they're very cute.
Like almost 9-year-old Tide, she has the place to herself, just like any dog and owner who book a spot. O'Handley says owners can get in the pool if it helps the dog swim. The pool isn't regulation size for the dog sport of dock diving, how far a dog can jump in a pool, but it's a starting point.
I was just curious to see how she would do with the actual structured dock diving. We've gone into the outdoor show and saw the docks dive there, and we always thought it was really cool, but we never followed through on it. But this kind of pushed me to do it. We both just had a day off today, and it seemed like a good opportunity to try something new with her.
Tide has her own review.
Tide, what did you think of swimming today?
And just like every good pool party, it ends with an ice cream. Jane Sponigal, CBC News, St. Croix.
Yeah, definitely a good day for a swim.
Oh, for sure.
Ryan is up next with his full weather forecast. Do stay with us.
This weather update is brought to you by Access Wellness Nova Scotia. Book your appointment today for free, confidential mental wellness support.
And now your full weather forecast, and it looks like some of the lawns and some of the places in Nova Scotia may get a splash of rain.
Yeah.
Yes, and also some thunder and lightning possible.
Yeah, that's right. Downpours, thunderstorms, that's really what we have to keep an eye on for the next 18 hours or so. Conditions will start to improve through tomorrow afternoon. But up until then, I mean, it was a pretty nice weekend. We did have some wet weather Sunday morning into Cape Breton into the afternoon, but it turned into a great beach day in the afternoon and also a great beach day today. There's Lockport. Note the fog monster looming.
Always seems to be looming, doesn't it? Yeah, you're right.
Cue the Jaws music. As you can see, yeah, it is just offshore there. When I first loaded this webcam in about half hour ago, there were people enjoying the beach there. And yeah, it's obviously been pretty nice the last couple of days. And I'm going to update you those water temperatures, by the way, noteworthy as well in just a moment. There's the special weather statement that is in effect for most of mainland Nova Scotia, minus Cumberland and Colchester North, and also Cape Breton. But most of the mainland at risk here for those heavy downpours and the risk for thunderstorms. As we look at our temperatures out there right now, 28 in Halifax, just 12 at Western Head. And you can see in those onshore winds, it is still pretty cool this time of year. Cheticamps at 18. The dew point values, we're all feeling pretty muggy. Cape Breton noticeable right now, but most of the mainland into the soup, as we say, and you can see the humidex values are into the 30s for most of the mainland. We've got pretty quiet conditions out there right now, some active weather rolling into New Brunswick, but we're watching for the most active weather here to push in across Nova Scotia through the late evening and into the overnight hours. Quick note on those temperatures. Things have cooled off out west. You can see the heat is still very much on across the U.S. South. 27 in Toronto at this hour. As we look at the temperatures for tonight, high teens, near 20. That is always an indication that it is going to be an uncomfortable sleep when we have temperatures this warm. It is going to be muggy for tonight. Those southwest winds, 20 gusting to 40, and that muggy sleep will, with that moisture in place, mean fog patches and, yes, the potential for those downpours. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to see these come through, and when it rains, it will rain tomorrow. It will open up, the skies will, and so that will run the risk of some localized flooding when these storms hit. We could see some local accumulations exceeding 30 millimeters in a short period of time. So remember, be weather aware tomorrow. Turn around, don't drown. Do not drive through any water that you think, oh, well, it's not that deep. We can probably make it through. Be safe out there. And we'll be watching these primarily in the morning. And again, it's kind of the southern part of the province that is most at risk for these storms. And you can see into the afternoon, the most intense rainfall will likely remain just offshore. So I don't think overall totals are really going to amount to a whole lot. 5, 10, maybe 15 millimeters. But again, the local amounts when those storms hit and those downpours hit will definitely add up. But the bulk of that rain will be passing to our south. As we look at the forecast temperatures, some high teens, low 20s across most of Cape Breton for tomorrow. A similar story across mainland Nova Scotia will be the low to mid 20s is going to be the name of the game with clouds and showers. And it is definitely going to be one of those days where it's feeling really, really muggy. And now as we look at the Tuesday evening time frame, those winds shift to north, the mugginess really dropping through Tuesday night. Wednesday's a much more comfortable day. We'll see some clouds and maybe a shower in the southwest, Yarmouth, Bridgewater, the South Shore, pushing into the metro area, at least a possibility, brighter skies towards the north. And as we move into Thursday, things are going to remain, I think, a little on the cloudy side, but a fine day overall. The muggy meter showing, telling the story here, truly tropical, then a big crash, pretty pleasant couple of days, and then we'll start to push our way up towards the Friday, Saturday time frame, but nothing unbearable, which is great. And as you can see with that forecast, it does look like a chance for showers increasing through Friday as our next system kind of pushes out through Saturday. Sunday looking like the big winner of the weekend at this point with temperatures into the mid-20s and a mix of sun and cloud, and we'll keep you posted on that, Tom and Amy.
Okay, do appreciate it. Thanks so much, Ryan.
Thank you.
Well, to the south of the border now, a massive rescue and recovery mission is underway in Texas as they search through tough terrain and high waters in the aftermath of Friday's historic floods. Over 80 people have died and many more missing children, including children, rather.
There are many questions about why so many people were caught up in these floods. Alexander Silberman takes a look at what made the area so vulnerable and the calls for accountability.
An intense torrential downpour in Texas Hill Country dumped 4 months worth of rain in hours. This video shows the surging wave of water that rushed down the Guadalupe River.
When we have a severe event of this nature, it is never just one factor.
Scientists say a cluster of thunderstorms lingered in the region. Drought made hard soils less able to absorb water and also created heat, fuel for the storms.
This is like a 1-2 punch that any large system looks for in terms of high moisture and high temperature.
The National Weather Service issued a series of flash flood warnings and emergencies in the early hours of Friday. But officials are facing tough questions about why people near the river weren't evacuated.
There was an inability to know precisely where that rain was going to fall and how much was going to fall.
This part of the state is known as Flash Flood Alley, and some officials are questioning if so-called warning fatigue kept people from leaving home. There are also concerns the National Weather Service was understaffed after cuts by the Trump administration.
If you don't have the people and the observational capabilities and you can't fly the planes or the satellites are not giving you the data, you're going to suffer.
In the aftermath, there are lessons for other flood risk areas, including in Canada, according to this expert.
Right now, on average, for major urban centers across the country, flood risk maps tend to be about 20 to 25 years out of date. We've got to bring them up to date so we know where water is going to go when the big storms hit.
Experts say AI models of flood zones could also help plan evacuations and save lives. Alexander Silberman, CBC News, Regina.
Coming up, a Halifax councillor wants to see consultation on provincial legislation that could give the mayor more power. A Dartmouth councillor is pushing for a consultation on any possible strong mayor powers, saying City Hall should get a say before being surprised by any provincial legislation rumored to be coming as early as this fall. Councillor Sam Austin is someone who has some concerns about all this. First of all, as we listen to the bells toll here, what is it about strong mayor powers that you think would change the way City Hall works?
Yeah, so two things. The first is the impartiality of the civil service. We really rely on getting good advice in it, making evidence-based decisions. If the senior staff are appointed by a single person, the mayor, they become responsible to them instead of to the whole of council. And then do you get people then pulling their punches, so to speak, to write reports that they think the person who could fire them wants to hear, right? So concerned about the quality of advice that we would get. And the other one is just a fundamental representation piece, right? You know, council's made up of 16 people plus the mayor from various communities, various backgrounds all around the municipality. I think you start to undermine some of that dynamic when you elevate the power of one above everybody else.
And yet some will argue that in their mind, it might mean that more would get done at City Hall a little faster. What do you say when you hear that argument?
I think that people often, when you kind of go to that, it's usually great. They can do things that I want to have happen. When the shoe's on the other foot, and you're getting leadership forcing a decision that you might disagree with, suddenly the decision making doesn't look so bad anymore. So I think we need to take a step back and remember that this is a big institutional change that would be in place if it happens for successive mayors. So whether or not you agree with the current direction or disagree with it, this is a change that is then there long term. And I think that makes it much more important to stop and think about, like, is this really what we want? Is this really where the route we want to go with this?
And yet, if you ask people on the street today, I dare say some of them would think that the mayor maybe has more power than he or she might really have at council now. Being just one vote on the council. It's essentially what a mayor is in a municipality like Halifax. So might there be an already built-in appetite for something like this among the electorate?
Perhaps. I mean, what I've heard is mostly concern from folks. When you think about like that dynamic, on paper the mayor is a weak figure. That's not actually the reality of the situation. As being the spokesperson for the municipality, as the person who's elected at large, the mayor comes with enormous symbolic and the ability to cajole, right? To convene and convince. But that requires leadership to make that happen. Like Mike Savage did a fantastic job of that over the years on council, getting things through in terms of his agenda. And, he did that by working with council. And so, the system is designed to, create that kind of tension and encourage a mayor to work with and engage with council. And so that's really what the role involves. And I think a lot of the tools already exist, right? Just from that kind of soft symbolic power.
So a lot of people on council and some people in the city are concerned about overreach by the province at any rate. What impact would strong mayor powers have when dealing with a dynamic like that?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, it then becomes something that really depends on who the mayor is, right, and what their relationship with the province is. There has been a tendency of late for the province to bring out changes to our legislation without talking to us, right? And I truly believe that we make better decisions if you actually engage with the other side of an argument. And so on this, right, if the province is looking at such a fundamental change that would reorder the structure of municipal government, potentially, bias the civil service and undermine representation. That's pretty weighty stuff that is worth having a conversation, not just with municipalities, but I think the public as a whole, right? This goes to really fundamental pieces about how we run our society, and I think that shouldn't just come as out of the back rooms fully formed. That should be a public discussion.
Have you seen strong mayor powers work anywhere where you think it's actually an efficient way to run a government?
I'm not an expert, right? Maybe there's the fellow Novak, I think, is up in Cape Breton, right, who's offered a couple opinions on this as not being something that's necessary in Nova Scotia's context. I'm not aware, I don't know what the problem is that you'd be seeking to solve here with it, right? I'm not really aware of any successes. I've certainly seen some of the headlines out of Ontario, like where, mayors have hired, right, people for political appointments, right? Like these, so there's certainly certainly open to abuse, right? The way it was structured in Ontario, and I think we should draw some lessons from that.
And so, what do you want? You're going to bring this before council. What do you want out of tomorrow's session vis-a-vis this topic?
Well, I'm hoping that council will approve my motion and will send a letter to the province, and it's not a difficult letter. It's simply saying, hey, if you are actually doing this, because there's been a lot of buzz about this, could you please talk to us about it? Could you please consult with us? And also looking for a staff report from our staff as to, well, what would be the potential implications if this came in and it was similar to Ontario? What would be the potential positives and pitfalls that we could draw from that, right? Because we should make an informed decision on this.
All right, we'll be watching to see what happens. Sam Austin, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Coming up, many people are still missing after catastrophic flash flooding hits parts of Texas over the weekend, killing at least 89.
And up in the air, the Department of National Defense is considering retiring older equipment, including the celebrated Snowbird airshow jets. Welcome back. As we heard earlier, nearly 90 people are dead after floods swept central Texas.
Many are still missing, and some of the bodies that were found remain unidentified. Sam Sampson brings us more.
Search and rescue efforts continue in central Texas, on land, in the water, and in the air. This massive operation includes hundreds, all trying to find missing people, including a group of girls from a nearby summer camp decimated by the flood.
I need to tell my community and those families who are waiting, this will be a rough week.
Early Friday morning, the Guadalupe River rose fast, violently ripping away everything and everyone in its path.
The force of that water was so insane. Nobody could get into it. My resident, that was the one that called 911, he was trying to get to the family and all the way to water, all the way to his waist, and debris hitting him, and he was yelling, "Please throw me your baby," and they couldn't, and they got swept away.
This crisis is taking a toll on Texans and the country.
Texas is grieving right now. The pain, the shock of what has transpired these last few days has broken the heart of our state.
Officials are asking search and rescue volunteers to register with the local Salvation Army. That way, their whereabouts will be known if the weather turns again. Still, volunteers pour in to help find survivors or bodies.
We don't know what we're going to find, if we're going to find anything, but at least the fact that we can find closure for each and every individual and family member, especially for the children that were lost at the camps and are still missing. I figured I could be doing my part just as much as these first responders and active personnel are doing.
This crisis is raising questions on a national level. If U.S. President Donald Trump's cuts to national weather agencies hindered Texans from getting speedy, urgent warnings. Trump's administration cut hundreds of jobs, including scientists and meteorologists, earlier this year. The president says he does not believe that decision affected this tragedy. He agreed to send federal help to the region for recovery and possibly to deal with more heavy rain in the coming days. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Washington.
Heavy rains in North Carolina have set off flood warnings in part of the state. So far, no injuries or deaths have been reported. Local crews say they had to carry out more than 50 water rescues in the state. Heavy rain and flooding were caused by remnants of Tropical Storm Chantal. There are concerns of more flash floods for mid-Atlantic U.S. states as the storm moves northeast.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is in Washington to discuss the war in Gaza. The high-profile meeting with President Trump will be the first face-to-face talk since Trump pushed Netanyahu to end Israel's war with Iran last month. It comes as new Israeli airstrikes are happening in Gaza. They have killed and injured dozens of people at multiple sites. Tom Perry has the latest from Jerusalem.
Both U.S. President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu were talking in positive terms about what they expect to come out of this meeting. Donald Trump, a bit more of a salesman. He was far more upbeat in his expectations. Trump was traveling from New Jersey, where he's got a golf course, to Washington yesterday. Here's some of what he had to say.
There's a good chance we have a deal with Hamas during the coming week, pertaining to quite a few of the hostages. Yeah. You know, we've gotten a lot of the hostages out, but pertaining to the remaining hostages, quite a few of them will be coming out. We think we'll have that done this week.
So that was Donald Trump talking about getting some, at least some of the hostages out of Gaza. Of course, Hamas is still holding 50 living and dead hostages. For Benjamin Netanyahu, getting those hostages out is a main priority. He also says, though, he wants to make sure that Hamas no longer poses a threat to Israel. Meanwhile, in Qatar, talks between the two sides, negotiating teams, are going on. Israeli media reports that Hamas is asking for some amendments to the ceasefire proposal, that Hamas wants to see the United Nations oversee aid shipments coming into Gaza. Right now, it's the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is backed by Israel and the United States. There's apparently some disagreement as well over where Israeli troops would withdraw to during the 60-day truce. And there's some disagreement as well over the language for permanently ending this war, because part of the 60-day truce is supposed to include talks to have a permanent ceasefire, so an end to the war in Gaza. Hamas says it wants that, but Benjamin Netanyahu says that can only happen when Hamas lays down their weapons, gives up control in Gaza. So that's what he's fighting for, and they're going to have to try to work that out to reach a ceasefire agreement. Tom Perry, CBC News, Jerusalem.
French President Emmanuel Macron is expected to be in the UK for a state visit this week. The two leaders will announce plans for French police to take more action to prevent migrants from illegally crossing the English Channel. Briar Stewart is in London with more.
In the shallows off the coast of northern France, migrants tried to cram onto a dinghy, watching what has become a routine and risky voyage. French officers and a team from BBC News. As it becomes overloaded and some, including a small child, are crowded near the propeller, officers move into the water. One pulls out a knife, slashing the boat. Migrant advocates say this routinely happens, but not on camera.
It's not really a surprise to see those kind of pictures and video just a few days before a meeting between France and UK.
France has been under pressure to do more to stop the migrants from crossing into the UK. As part of a 3-year deal, the UK gave France more than $800 million to step up security. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has repeatedly talked tough about stopping the crossings.
We've got to have a concerted effort to smash the gangs that are running this vile trade.
But in the past 6 months, UK government figures show around 20,000 migrants arrived by boat, a figure that's up 50% over the same period last year. In the last week alone, more than 2,000 crossed the channel in boats. Currently, French officers will only wade into the water to intercept the migrants if there's a danger to life. But France is considering allowing officers to go further from shore.
The reason that they've considered this change in maritime doctrine is because of this increasing use of taxi boats that are setting off further down the shore and loitering in shallow waters.
What to do about the channel crossings is expected to be a big part of the conversation this week during a state visit, which will see France's president meet with both the UK government and members of the royal family. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
A somber day in London. It's been 20 years since the city was rocked by coordinated mass transit attacks. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, along with London Mayor Sadiq Khan, laid wreaths at the July 7 Memorial Gardens. A commemoration service also took place at St. Paul's Cathedral, where the names of those who died were read out. In 2005, 4 suicide bombers set off explosives on London's public transit network, killing 52 people and wounding more than 700 others. It was the deadliest attack on the British capital since the Second World War.
Manitoba officials provided an update on wildfires that have forced about 6,600 residents out of their homes. There are more than 80 active fires across the province, many sparked by recent lightning strikes.
When lightning strikes, it can take 3 to 5 days, sometimes even longer, for that smoke to pop up. So that's what we're dealing with now, is a lot of starts from lightning and more forecasted on the horizon, unfortunately.
Residents of the town of Leaf Rapids have been given 24 hours to leave their community. Manitoba's largest northern city of Thompson is the latest to declare a state of emergency due to a nearby fire. This year has already seen a total of 235 fires, far above the 30-year average of 187. The provincial government is helping to secure shelter for evacuees, additional fire crews that arrived in Winnipeg to help put out the fire.
They're a familiar sight in Canadian skies and a favorite at air shows across the country. But the Snowbirds are flying on borrowed time. As the federal government weighs whether to replace its aging aircraft, a surge in national pride may make the difference. Sarah Onyango has the story.
To fly in tight formation, you need to be the best of the best. For more than half a century, the Snowbirds have been a source of national pride and a way to promote the Canadian Armed Forces.
The teamwork, just the aerobatics, the jets, everything, it's kind of represents everything you imagine in flying in the military. So that was something that was very exciting to me.
But the Snowbirds' future is up in the air. The CT-114 Tudor jets are old and expensive. Production stopped in 1966, and they were initially supposed to be retired 15 years ago, but keep getting extensions.
The aircraft that are still flying, the dozen aircraft that are still flying, need to cannibalize other aircraft somewhere in a boneyard, in a graveyard of aircraft, to maintain the flight status of the current Snowbirds.
The Department of National Defense confirmed the jets are scheduled to be retired from service in 2030, but what replaces them, or if the Snowbirds fly on at all, remains up in the air.
If we replace the CT-114 Tutor aircraft with a modern jet fighter or a modern jet trainer, will the Canadian public agree to pay $1 billion or $1.5 billion to do that?
In the face of recent threats to Canadian sovereignty from U.S. President Donald Trump, there's been a surge in patriotism, something some say could save the Snowbirds from the chopping block. Captain Katie Clapp remembers seeing a Snowbird show when she was a little girl and being inspired to dream big.
It shows them that they can do whatever they want, and it doesn't matter if they're 6 years old or they're 20 years old or they're a girl or they're a boy or whatever. If they decide that they can do something, there's a way to make that happen.
And as captains continue to lead their teams in shows across the country, they hope they can keep reminding the nation why they're worth investing in. Sarah Nyango, CBC News, Regina.
A popular strawberry U-pick on Prince Edward Island will not open this season.
It's because of a fungus that stops the plants from growing. Gwyneth Egan explains.
What we're seeing here is a really narrow row of strawberries and a lot of skips and misses where plants have actually died out.
This strawberry field in Summerside doesn't have as many berries as it usually does. That's because of a plant disease called Neopestaliopis, or Neop. It stops strawberry plants from growing. Neop has been found in some PEI fields, and there's no known cure. Matthew Compton says it's the reason he had to close his U-pick this summer.
It's a really hard decision. I really enjoy the public being able to come into our fields and with their kids and take their pictures and harvest some strawberries.
Compton says his farm needs to produce 2,400 boxes of strawberries a day to keep operations going, and it needs the berries from what would normally be the U-pick field to make that happen. He says he also had to up his planting.
It definitely opened your eyes. I mean, it's something I don't want to go through, every year. We basically had to double our plant production that we were going to plant for this year. So instead of planting, say, 30,000 new strawberry plants, we planted 60,000 plants to make up for this loss.
He says Neop can last in the soil for a year. So once these strawberries are picked, he plans to put something else here.
We're lucky. We're diverse. We're a very mixed vegetable farm. We grow a lot of other things that will help kind of spread out this loss for us this year. And, we'll just move on and smile and away we go.
Although there may be fewer strawberries in the field this year, Compton says they're still good to eat.
Neop does not present any challenge to a strawberry. It doesn't affect its flavor, its taste, its look, or ability for anybody to have it. It's just it's a plant disease. It just makes the plants not perform just as well.
Some farmers say they've begun spraying their crops to protect them from Neop and avoid problems in years to come. Gwyneth Egan, CBC News, Summerside.
Canada's main stock index finished lower today, driven partly by weakness in real estate stocks, while U.S. markets also fell. Let's take a look at the numbers as we head to break.
This weather update is brought to you by Access Wellness Nova Scotia. Book your appointment today for free, confidential mental wellness support.
All right, we've got some active weather in store for Nova Scotia. Is that how we put it?
Yeah.
Active. Well, as you said earlier, the lawns could use the drink as long as they're not too crazy.
Yeah, exactly, and the crops as well. Yeah, we could use the moisture. Typically, when it comes down in buckets like it could tonight into tomorrow, we get more runoff and not as much absorption.
Yeah.
But we'll take what we can get for sure. First and foremost, let's have a look at our viewer picture of the day. This is a fantastic one. We're zooming into Inverness. And yes, Francis A. McDonald says...
Nice beach walk.
Any picture of Inverness is nice, but that's a pretty darn nice one.
Yeah, Francis says, Bermuda? Why?
Good question.
Yeah, your own backyard.
Just go to Inverness or anywhere across Nova Scotia. And as you said, I kind of zoomed through it tonight. There's so much to talk about with the forecast, but the water temperatures in the Strait are into the high teens and even a few 20s now. Sea surface temperatures being detected there from the satellite, so pretty cool there. Not pretty warm there, I should say. Not so warm along the South Shore, though, where we are still looking at water temperatures in the low double digits. But yes, we are looking at the active weather tomorrow, clouds, showers, the risk for thunderstorms across the board. The greatest risk will be across the south. That system pulls away through the day through overnight Tuesday and into Wednesday morning with some lingering showers in the south. So let's run you through the timeline quickly. So there are the downpours that are going to be moving through. The bulk of the action, you can see there in the yellow, red, orange, looks like it's going to be south of the province, but we will get into some of that. So just keep your eye in the sky tomorrow, be weather aware. And as we look at the forecast into the long range, not looking too bad, especially into the latter half of the weekend.
We'll take it. Thanks so much, Ryan. Well, while no one likes them in food, some orchards in Chile are using human hair as mulch to fight drought. Mats made out of hair help lock in moisture around the crops, the foundation that makes them say it cuts water evaporation by more than 70%.
The hair is mostly collected from hair salons and taken to a facility where a machine is used to weave them into sheets. Hair also contains nutrients like nitrogen, calcium, and sulfur that go into the soil.
Local farmers say the method has helped to reduce irrigation and also boosted crop yields.
There you go.
Wow.
That's it for us tonight. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Good night.